Hi and welcome to this latest 10x leadership video. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is the channel where we're trying to make you a great leader. Sorry to interrupt, I know we've only just started. I just want to point out this is a deliberate long form video. If you want to be a great leader, you're going to need to do something different. So you're going to need to know what you need to know, and this video will help you with that. If you're just after something short and sweet, you're probably going to find that somewhere else. So thank you very much for your time. If you do want to stick around, watch to the end because it will help you get the most out of what I'm telling you today. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the video. And this week we're going to carry on with the Modern Leadership series. And this week's episode is all about inclusivity. So the 6 things that you don't want to do that's going to ruin inclusivity, basically. So let's just have a quick recap about this Modern Leadership series. So it started back in episode 35. So if you haven't already seen that, if you're just new to the channel, it might be worth going and having a look at that first. And in it, we talked about the 3 things that will help us be modern leaders. So that's about adaptability, it's leveraging technology, and it's also about inclusivity. And we need all 3 of those things to help us, I suppose, navigate the ever-changing and rapidly changing environment that we find ourselves in as a modern leader. We covered off adaptability in episodes 31, 36 and 37. So if you haven't already seen those, it might be worth going and having a look at those. Leveraging technology we covered in episodes 38 to 42. So some good videos there for you to have a look at as well. And we're now moving into the inclusivity section of modern leadership. And there are a number of things that we need to look at, as you can see here from this list. And I'm going to do a few videos on these topics. But what we're going to cover in this video is the first 2. So empowerment and decentralisation and collaborative leadership, all under the umbrella of inclusivity. Now, in thinking about how to sort of convey the story and the message here, I was thinking about, often we have a to-do list, don't we, of things that we need to do. But for some reason I've created a ToDon't list. Don't judge me. This is a list of things that, and specifically 6 things that we should not do, which we should stop doing to help us be more inclusive and have a more inclusive team. So let's have a look. Bit of a weird transition there, let's not worry about that. So item number 1, the first thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to have the illusion of control. So what I mean by that is that leaders don't have, and they don't need to have, all the answers. So if you're one of those leaders who thinks, being a leader means you fix everything, everyone comes to you, you feel important, that isn't what you should be doing. That isn't going to create an inclusive team. It's not even going to create a very good team, if I'm honest. Equally, leaders should not be controlling every decision. And the fact is that controlling leaders actually stifle innovation, and what it does is it disengages employees and members of the team. It doesn't make them feel included, it doesn't make them feel valuable, it doesn't make them want to be there. So those are the things that you don't want to do. So stop doing those if you're already doing them. And if you're not doing them, fantastic, don't go anywhere near them. Instead, though, what you should be doing is you should be looking to give autonomy to people and your team and to allow them to self-organise. I say allow, that's another controlling word, isn't it? But you should create an environment where they can make decisions. They can decide how to set themselves up, how to operate, when they do things. You're there as a sort of guide and a source of, I suppose, inspiration. But you should be allowing your team just to get on and release this control that you think you've got, because you haven't really got any control at all. And it's much more likely then that they will be interested and engaged and want to work in the team. You should also be encouraging decisions to be made at the appropriate level, and ideally at the lowest possible level. So if you're, the sort of leader who you say, well, go off and work that out, come back to me and I'll tell you whether it's the right answer or not, and I'll make all the decisions. You're just a bottleneck. You're just creating problems for you and your team. And you've got this sense of control, but all you're doing is you're clogging everything up. So free up decision making to the people who are best at making that decision, whatever the topic happens to be. What you should be doing is you should be coaching and empowering people. You should be sharing your knowledge. You should help people understand your mindset and your thought process so that they can make similar sorts of decisions. That's not to say you were making the right decisions in the first place, but instead of holding the power, you share it out with everyone. You let them make decisions where it's appropriate, and you make decisions where they can't or it's not appropriate for them to do so. So you really give people empowerment. You don't just pay lip service to it and say, lots of leaders say, oh, I'm empowering you, and then they're not. Their behaviour suggests the complete opposite. And really, your role as a leader is not to control. Instead, it's to trust people. It's to give them the space and the opportunity to show what they can do and to inspire them to make those decisions, to self-organise, to deliver the things that you, your company, your organisation, and they want to do, so that they're successful and the company's successful. So the first item on the ToDon't list, not easy to say, is the illusion of control. Get rid of it. The second item is you don't want an ego-driven leadership. So, don't or stop thinking it's your team. It isn't. Stop thinking you're the most important person in the team, or in fact in the company, or even in the world. Again, you're not. And stop making everything about you and everyone having to fit in with you and what you want. That's what an ego-driven leader would do. And that's not, again, it's not going to help with inclusion. It's not going to help with productivity. It's not going to make for a happy ship. Instead, what you should be doing is recognise that everyone who's part of the team, they think it's their team. And it is their team. They're investing their time, they're investing their life in trying to deliver the things that you're trying to deliver. So it's theirs as much as it is yours. And in fact, it's everyone's who's working on the team being successful. Again, instead of everything being about you, be humble, admit your mistakes. None of us are infallible. Just stop thinking you're perfect. I've done a video previously about why perfect's not good for you, not good for your team, it's not good for your organisation. Go and have a look at that and it'll give you more information. But it's not, life isn't about you. I know you're important to yourself, but if you're in a position of power in an organisation, or at least you think you are, you are going to think life is about you. It isn't. And be prepared to learn, and learn from absolutely everyone. Lots of people think, well, I don't mind learning, but I'm only going to learn from my seniors. Well, my view is that there are lots and lots of people with expertise. I've got people in the teams that I work in who know far more than I do about, virtually everything. I'm very interested and very curious to learn from them so I can be better. equally, if they're doing the same, we're all going to help each other get better and help the team be better and help us all be more successful. So be prepared to learn from absolutely everyone. And the other thing is about seeking feedback and then using that to improve both yourself and the team. And if everyone's doing that again, you're just going to have exponential growth. You're just going to get better and better and better. But again, with an ego-driven leadership style, you're thinking, well, I've already got it made. I've already got it sussed. I'm in this leadership role. I'm as good as I could possibly be. You're not. And any great leader knows that they're on a continuous journey. And as good as you are now, you can be better. You can always be better. So get rid of your ego. Stop leading with your ego. Start being humble. Start being prepared to learn. Have an open mind and a growth mindset. And a funny old thing, I've got a video about that if you want to go and have a look at it. So that's number 2. Number 3 is don't pretend you're invincible. You're not. Stop fearing your vulnerability. We're all vulnerable. There are easy for me to say, there are always things that we're worried about. There are things that we're not good at. Don't worry about it, but don't hide it, which is the second point. And the third one is stop pretending that you're something you're not. Your team and your colleagues, your peers, your boss, everyone's too clever for that. Everyone can see through it. So if you think you're hiding it, you're not. Stop doing it. Instead, be honest, be real, be authentic. What your team wants, what your colleagues want, what your boss wants, is for you to be you. That's why you're in the company or the organisation. And again, people are far too intelligent to be fooled. And what they're really looking for is an honest, authentic version of you. So if you're pretending you're something you're not, everyone can see through it. All you're doing is fooling yourself. And what it does then is it puts a barrier between you and others, because they know you're not being yourself and you're just still pretending you're somebody else. And people don't like, I suppose, people who are not truthful. Also be inclusive, seek help, look for advice. This links back to the last one about the ego as well. You don't know everything, nor are you meant to know everything. So if you need to know, go and talk to somebody. Ask people for help. Make collaborative decisions. You might still need to make the decision at the end of the day, but get advice. Ask people, well, what do you think? I've got this situation. What do you think I should do? You don't have to go with what they're saying, but get different perspectives. The other thing is, and I've covered this in one of the other videos as well, acknowledge challenges, don't ignore them. I've seen a lot of leaders who, they think, well, I'm a leader, I've got to put a positive spin on things. You are a leader, you do have to help sell change, you do have to move people through the change curve. There's a video about that on the channel as well. But what you shouldn't be doing is just glossing over everything, pretending there are no problems. Because if you do, you're not authentic, you're not real, you're not in touch with reality. And your team and colleagues will know that, and they're not interested in what you're saying. Because they don't believe what you're saying, because you're missing a massive part of a problem. You're just pretending it's not there. And the other bit is about empathising. So, when other people have got a problem and they've got a challenge, acknowledge it. Again, don't gloss over it, don't ignore it, don't ask for feedback from people or say, how are you feeling, and then just ignore it. Doesn't mean that you have to take absolutely everything into account, but if you're going to ask, if you're going to consult with people, at least have the courtesy to listen to what they're saying, acknowledge what they're saying, and then if there's something that needs solving, try and solve it. You might decide there isn't something that needs solving, it's just they're in a certain point in the change curve, and you need to try and help them with that, or they need to try and help themselves. And sometimes just talking about it, talking about your own experience and where you are, unlocks that, and helps you and them move forward. So, this isn't the 1980s anymore. You don't have to pretend that, a leader somehow is invincible and, nothing can touch you, nothing gets to you. I suppose the other thing I'd just say at this point is, it used to be as well that people used to say, well, what's happening in your work, in your home life is your business. Don't bring it to work with you. That's why we had lots of mental health problems. Again, acknowledge that people are having challenges. Support them with that. If you're supporting somebody with a problem that they're having outside work, they're much more likely to want to repay that and support you and help the company and organisation move forwards and be successful. And you're not doing it for that reason, you're doing it for the right reason, but there will be a payback. Number 4 is don't overcomplicate. All too often I see people making things far more difficult than they need to be. And quite often I see people doing this because, well, I'm assuming actually because they want to make themselves look more intelligent. And if you're sitting there thinking, yeah, actually I do that, stop. Instead of making you look intelligent, it actually does the opposite. Intelligent people can summarise and simplify things. People who aren't intelligent tend to overcomplicate to try and make themselves look better. Like they use more complex language and they use words that they wouldn't normally use. Again, people can see through it all. Just keep it simple. Stop overthinking, stop overanalyzing. And one of the other things I see a lot as well is that people, again, to make themselves look clever, they think of some bizarre scenario that's an outlier, that's unlikely to happen, that's got, like less than 1% chance of occurring. And that's what they try and focus the conversation on. Oh, I thought of this. Well, that's fantastic, but, it is unlikely to happen. And let's focus on the most likely scenarios and how we solve those, not solve every single scenario you can ever think of. Because all you're doing is clogging up the works, you're stopping any sort of progress. And you'll have seen in one of my other videos, hopefully, agile methodology. You're much better off starting, tweaking, adjusting, pivoting, than you are trying to solve every single problem before you even start. So just get on with it, start working the problems, work out what's working, what isn't, what the challenges are. You'll come across things you never thought of. But if you try and spend time thinking of all of those things, you'll never get going. So instead of overcomplicating, simplify and reframe. Help people see the simple version of what it is, what the challenge is. They're much more likely to be able to come up with a solution. Think about the principles, the sort of first principles that you're trying to solve. I use this technique a lot where, people are off down some rabbit hole trying to solve some outlier problem. And I just bring us back to the point, which is, right, what is it we're trying to solve? Where are we trying to head? Does this bit of the conversation move us forward or does it not? And if it doesn't solve the problem, if it doesn't address the principle that you're trying to solve, drop it. Focus on the principles. Streamline, clarify, check understanding. Communication is really difficult. You think that you're being really clear, but of course everyone's basing understanding on their own experiences. So if they've not had the same experiences as you, and they won't have, their version of what you're saying is different to what you think you're saying. So make sure that you summarise, make sure they summarise, ask them to play back to you what they think you've said, to make sure that people are on the same page. And again, keep it as simple as you possibly can. And at the end of meetings or discussions, just summarise what you think you've agreed. And again, your job is to remove obstacles, and in this case, in the overcomplication space, remove any unnecessary obstacles. Make it as easy as possible to succeed. On to item number 5. So item number 5 is don't only think short term. And again, I think it was the last video, episode 42, I talked about systems thinking. And so if you want more detail on this, it's worth going and having a look at that video. But stop chasing short-term goals. And what I mean by that is only focusing on short-term goals. Stop creating business as well, rather than efficiency. Again, all too often I see leaders thinking that people being busy is the same as people being productive and effective. And somehow that if you have hustle going on, it's, you've got some energy and it's getting things done. All it's doing is keeping people busy. If they're not busy with the right thing, you might as well not bother. And often what people are busy with is reacting to short-term things and trying to get instant gratification, which for me is linked to the ego piece as well and the sort of control piece. It's often people who are insecure that want instant gratification about things because they just need reassuring all the time that, am I doing a good job? It's much harder to feel like you're doing a good job if you don't get that gratification for 6 months. But just looking after short-term goals is not going to get you anywhere. Instead, what you should be doing is balancing the immediate wins with sustainable growth. And the more you can focus on the medium to long term, by the time you get to the medium and long term, so let's just say 6 months out, by the time you get to 6 months, the problems that you just spent hours and hours and hours on aren't there, or they've diminished because you were dealing with them 6 months ago. You've already got a head start on things and you're making your future life much easier. And then you can either work on new objectives and new outcomes, or you can make the things that you were doing easier, more effective again, and go through a continuous improvement cycle. And the other thing you want to be doing is creating a culture and an environment where you're all thriving. And the importance of that is, storms will come in the future. They always do. And when they do, you will be there, you'll be in the right position to weather those storms. Whereas if all you're doing is you're running at 100% to try and, meet the current need and the reacting to the current problem, when something else lands on top of that, you've got no capacity. You have if you think medium and long term. So this is about replacing the reactive and the busy approach to things to a much more strategic and effective way of working. And you and your team and your company will thank you for doing that, because you will be more effective, you will be more productive, your team will be happier, everyone will feel like they're making more progress, and you can deliver much more that way than you can just reacting to the latest thing. And the other thing is about aiming for consistency and longer term growth. So, I don't know, an analogy here is fitness. You'd be much better off going to the gym 3 times a week for half an hour and doing that for a year than you would trying to spend, half a day every fortnight doing it. Because, when you do the lots but infrequent option, you're just going to wear yourself out, and then you're going to get ill, and then you're going to not want to go because you're going to be demotivated. If you're doing little and often, but you're doing it over a longer term, you're much more likely to succeed, and you have incremental growth then that just keeps building and building and building like compound interest. So aim for consistency and long-term growth. The last point, the last thing on the ToDon't list, I quite like it now, is do not have fear-based leadership. Again, we're not in the 1970s, 1980s. Stop leading through intimidation, fear, and a projection of power. You don't have any. Stop trying to keep your team off balance. And again, I've seen a lot of this, usually with insecure leaders again. They don't want them to know what they know. They don't want them to being in a powerful position because they're worried about their own job, or they're worried about not looking good or not feeling valued. You don't want your team off balance. You want them to know exactly what they're doing. You want them to be confident. You want them to be effective. Keeping them off balance is the complete opposite of that. And the other thing is, stop stressing your team. If you're leading by fear, it might work 1 or 2 times, but they're soon going to get sick of it. They're going to start fighting back. They're going to start resisting. They're going to want to work somewhere else. You're going to get a bad reputation. People won't want to work in the team. So stop doing fear-based leadership. Hopefully none of you are going anywhere near it. But you haven't got power. You haven't got control. You can't make anyone do anything that they don't choose to do. And if you have that mindset, then what you're going to be doing is focusing on how you can support and help them to make the right decisions without you needing to be poking them and pushing them and prodding them all the time. So instead, try and create an inclusive, welcoming and supportive culture. It doesn't matter whether they're full-time members of the team, part-time members, they're temporary, they're contractors, they're somebody that's just passing through, it's somebody that's going to stay for years. Welcome them, treat them the same, make them feel included, and you will grow that team into a team that everyone wants to be part of and is really, really successful. Create a psychologically safe environment as well. And by this, I don't mean just say that you've got it. Actually create one where people can say what they think. You listen to their problems, you acknowledge them, everyone's supporting each other, and you're all looking to try and make your team much better. Encourage and celebrate risk taking. I've talked about this before in other videos. If people are fearful of taking risks, they're not going to take them. And that's not going to help you move forward. So take that fear away, and they're much more likely to take measured, controlled risks that will push you and your team forward. And also on the mistake front, don't fear mistakes. As long as you're learning from them, and as long as you're not repeating them time and time again, they're good things. Don't be fearful of them. So, in summary, there are just a few points I want to make really. One is, stop dictating, start coaching. Stop telling people what to do, start supporting them and encouraging them to do things for themselves. And finally, stop talking about me and mine and start talking about us and ours. It's not your team, it's not about you, it's about the team and how you work together, and it's about everyone feeling they're included, they have ownership, they have agency, they are empowered to be successful. And if you do all of those things and you don't do the things on your ToDon't list, you and your team are going to be really, really successful. So I hope that's useful. I hope that you're not doing some of the things on the ToDon't list and you're going to do some of those items that I highlighted in green. It will make a massive difference to you and your company and your organisation. So that's it for this week. I hope you found that useful. I do get quite excited about it because I think this is really, really important stuff and is going to make a massive difference. If you found this useful, as ever, please like, please subscribe. Subscribing really helps the channel. It costs nothing to you, but really helps us on the channel. Please share this with friends and colleagues, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you very much for your time.